to begin this, do you guys want to first kind of start talking about some of the main, like before we actually identify the DCCRD that we want to expand on, do we want to throw out some ideas of the main demands that we found while watching it?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I've got two. If I can start if you want.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yes. So the first one is it's kind of obvious that the deaf consumer is intoxicated or tired or so since this is booking, I'm assuming she was just pulled off the street and put into jail to do this process, and so her being tired and her being whatever level of state of mind she's in definitely I think affects almost everything, every interaction that happens throughout the entire process.
I would agree with that. I think
yeah.
I said because I think that is a job. So, but I do think it is fair to say that she is tired, or at least she reports that she's tired, because she said that several times throughout the
her
video.
eyes were closed, and the interpreter was saying her eyes are closed to the so.
But I wonder, and this is something that I can look up real quick. I know it's an assumption, and I guess she's not guilty of it, but she was arrested for the. I guess that's why I made that assumption.
Well, yeah, she's being held because of third-degree DWI. Yeah.
Which means that she was just booking happens right after you get the cops bring you into the station. And that's like the very next thing that happens after you get arrested from whatever happened. So that's why I made that assumption.
Yeah, and I think that's great. How do you know about this process, Alicia? I don't know if I should ask on a recorded video.
I have observed a few legal things, and I've been present for a few family members' legal processings.
Yeah, that suffices. We're good with that.
Yeah. But the other demand that I think, I don't know if it'd be I can't say that it would be a main demand throughout the whole thing, but she's sitting there like this, and she's signing with her hand on the table. And there's a few times that, I know one time the interpreter had to get clarification, and she interpreted, I don't want to tell you for, I've already told you, because of how her hands were.
Mm-hmm. I did catch that.
Was just something
I did catch that as a paralinguistic demand. The other thing is she would sign really low sometimes. Like very small sign. Yeah, so I thought that was a paralinguistic demand as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you had a couple of big ones. Your first one being that the client was tired and may possibly be inebriated, but let's leave the maybe out of it. She was definitely tired, that's for sure.
Yes, and then her signing space just was all over. Whether it's right in front of her, on the table, she was all that. Her eyes closing, which I guess was a separate demand for a specific incident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good. Charnette, did you see any large demands?
One I was just thinking about was the environmental, the radio voices coming in on the radio. At one point, she did indicate that sounds, but at the other points, I didn't see her saying about it. So that was one of the things I wanted to point out.
Another environmental that just kind of popped in my head was that the first part was he was reading off, and then the second was that he was reading off the computer, filling out paperwork.
Mm-hmm. One big demand that I noticed, and I don't know if this had any effect for whether the client wanted to look at the interpreter or not is the interpreter was standing, having sensitive if you're tired. Having to do that is just going to make you want to like squint because you're looking more toward the lights. So just the choice of the interpreter to stand behind the officer, I thought that was an interesting demand that made itself, at least in my mind, prevalent a couple of times.
She didn't have her glasses. That they have.
Well, she said those were just for reading.
Oh.
But yeah, just something we could ask the interpreter a question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can make an assumption, but we don't know is why did she choose to stand instead of sit?
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to add that to our question.
Especially because that could influence the power dynamics between the police officer and the deaf consumer.
Yeah.
My assumption is that because of the placement of the computer and why, but again, we can't say that because we don't know.
One of the questions I had actually written down was related to the placement was, did you ask to stand by the computer on my questions? So I think that's kind of a sub question for the one we wrote down.
I was just going to say, make that a sub question because that definitely works into it because it also helped her at one point when they were doing that.
When she asked about intent, was it when she asked about the intent of reasons off or whatever for no specific reason? Is that what you're?
You could tell she was looking off the computer for sure. A huge demand that I actually marked down
Mm-hmm.
that kind of spiraled a few other things and caused some resulting demands. Because she didn't, I don't know, and that would, I guess this could lead us into a whole different conversation, so I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole. But she missed and or did not interpret for no reason that very first time when she was setting up those questions. And then that's why later the resulting demand was she had to step back and ask for the intent.
Oh, that's good. I missed it the first thing and seeing. I don't know if my attention was more geared toward the interpreter at that point, but I didn't know that he had stated that at the beginning.
Yeah. So the cop says, "Have you ever had any of the following for unexplained reasons?" And the terp signs yourself and then points to the computer. And so just drops that part.
Interesting.
Then,
the other thing is, and again, we're getting into a lot of speculation, and we could maybe ask her, is maybe that was an intentional omission, because the unexplained reasons at that point didn't seem maybe necessary, but it became we then realized, oh, that actually is very important to include.
That's a good point because it also said in that introduction before we even watched the video was that this interpreter, although she's qualified, has NIC, CI, CT, whatever, this setting was new to her.
Mm.
And so she may never had known this process of questioning and didn't realize that intent until she realized it and had to ask. So I think that would be a good question to add. Is that did she miss the that section of what he was saying, or did she purposefully omit?
Okay. Okay. I'm writing in the unexplained or for no reason questions in the booking. Did you intentionally omit the unexplained the first time, or was it a decision?
There we go.
Wait, or was it an accident? Because I said intentionally versus,
Yeah, oh,
or
yeah.
was it an accident? Okay, the
Yeah.
other one. Cool.
I mean, and yeah, we all have those times where something's happening, but it just doesn't come through our ears until later when we're like, oh, that's what they said.
Yeah, Charnette, did you have other big demands? Charnette, you there?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Not big ones. I'm looking over my notes here. You guys can say what you have.
No worries. I think that's a good start. Why don't we make our list of questions? Because I think that will also inform us as to what other constellations there might be. Because for me, I know the questions I wrote down are about specific choices, and I think our constellation are going to be about specific choices because it has to be there has to be a decision made, a control option, and
Right.
then the
The only other one I could think of is when the police asked her to list someone for the emergency contact. And then she's like, the interpreter, just the interpreter for that type of situation. Thought that was.
I actually put that down as well.
Me too.
So,
What would we list demand for though? Would it be?
that would be, I think. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out, would it be the deaf consumer list the interpreter as an emergency contact? And okay.
I think that would be an intrapersonal demand because the deaf consumer says, call the interpreter. She's a good friend of mine. And the interpreter had to step in before after the cops, like, oh, okay, put the interpreter down.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, technically,
Did
you
you
should
say
put me down.
intrapersonal or interpersonal?
Her.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Otis, hi, buddy.
Yeah, because that kind of spirals a few other resulting demands that come from the interpreter's control choice.
Okay, so what are some of the other questions that you guys jotted down? I know we had talked about just each of us bringing a couple of questions and maybe fleshing it out a little more.
Can we find a question in the one we just are talking about since we're on it?
Sure. I mean, so currently our questions are, why did you choose to stand instead of sit? And kind of a sub question to that is, did you ask to stand next to the computer screen so that you could see it?
And then the second one was.
The other one was, in the unexplained or for no reason questions in the booking, did you intentionally omit unexplained the first time you interpreted it, or was that an accident?
Okay.
A question or an idea to ask a question related to the emergency contact could be one of two things. A, have you ever had this happen before? And were you prepared to use this type of, what is it called? Is it negative?
Taking role space? Like, because she had to step out of her, she had to step out of her interpreter role to actually be a participant in the conversation at that point. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So, like, has she ever had to do that in this kind of setting or context where the deaf participant is directly talking to her or directly referring to her, not just like stepping out of role space in general, but the fact that she had me down because technically that's not, I have to keep my boundary as an interpreter. So,
so I think are Otis and HP?
Yeah, I was looking at them like, what are they doing?
They're playing.
Okay.
too, so everyone would be informed of, what he was saying.
Okay, so I'm gonna write down. Have you ever needed to insert yourself outside of it, the role of an interpreter in an interpreted action before, or interpreted event before?
I feel like that's too generic, to be honest.
Okay, let's make it more specific. Yeah.
In an interpretive event before, when the DC deaf consumer is directly addressing you, the interpreter.
What's your event? Okay, gotcha.
And then my second question to that I don't know if we would want to ask, but just kind of, I'm curious, I guess more curiosity of it, is are they actually friends outside of the situation?
I wondered that too, Alicia.
You did that too?
I wondered that. I didn't write that down because I was like, it's really not pertinent one way or another to the previous decision, but yeah.
Well, why I thought about it is because, we, socialize within the deaf community, and we do make friends in the deaf community. But is this a relationship that is a friendship outside of this instance, or just an interpreter, deaf individual who she's interpreted for her several times, and then the deaf consumer labels her as a friend? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Would you ask that? What's the level of your friendship, or would you explain that whole thing that you just said?
Are you actually friends outside of an interpreter-client relationship? I think that's what what's what John wrote down. Sorry.
That's fine.
I think that sums it up a lot more pretty than mine. But yeah.
Another question I had kind of earlier on in the event is how did you decide to voice for the client? Because, and this is me, again, assuming things, but to me it sounded like in a couple of her responses, particularly later on in the interpreted event, that the interpreter, tries to sound inebriated or under the influence. And so my question really, and I wouldn't give her that leading question, but my question really is, how did you decide to voice with the understanding that you needed to match the consumer?
That's a great one, because I was thinking the same thing with one of the things I wrote down was the deaf consumer many times just shook her head.
Yes.
Or just went like this, and she would say, nuh-uh, huh? Making those great sound. Yeah. Say that again, Charnette.
Affect was great, I think. For a good match.
It was, but what were the decisions, or what were the identifying things that she saw to make those decisions is what I want to know.
And that's my question too, is because there was one point where the deaf client goes like this, and she gave a full blown response to just a wavy hand. I wrote it down. No,
sometimes.
Wavy
once
hand.
in a while.
Oh,
or the once in a while.
It's been happening more. I can't tell you how frequently. It's what the interpreter interpreted just from this, just from the
put
wavy
that down
hand.
too.
Is that about the cough or sleeping at night or something?
I think it was in relation to the cough, the wet cough. So how did you decide to voice for the client with an understanding that you needed to match their affect and meaning? Cool.
Or could have been with the sweats, the night sweats or something. Something in that.
It was around that section, yeah. let's see. The other question that I wrote down just was in the section about the zip code. The interpreter said, "Hey, zip code," and then she went 5 5, and kind of waited. And I that kind of called up a red flag to me, because I know there's certain times when, particularly working with law enforcement or whatever, that could be one of their subtle ways to assess how drunk or how fit a person is to be asked questions right then. And so if you can't immediately recall your address, or if you can't immediately recall your zip code, because how often do you write your zip code down? You write it down pretty frequently, at least I do. So I was like, oh, with the interpreter making the decision to go ahead and do 5 5 and like kind of lean forward, I was like,
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I wrote it down too, but you're viewing it from that legal environment context, which is great. And one of those results or concurrent demands could be that, the interpreter doesn't have frequent flyer miles in the setting.
Right.
So she might not be aware of the cop's intent. However, from a different perspective, she could be using her elk, because zip code 98.
Right.
Because those two numbers usually of a city or a town or whatever.
In
That's
Washington.
A good one, John. Well,
Right.
yeah, in Washington, sorry. But
Yeah.
6-1 could be for at home in Illinois. Shannon, I'm sure you've got those first two numbers for your area too. But because you're an interpreter in that specific area, you're probably going to have a well understanding of all the zip codes that are present. That could be a good one for a DCCRD, but we don't know any other resulting demands that could have come from that if the cop used that later on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Janet, do you have any other ones?
Well, that's true.
Oh,
I was gonna say for a lot of our stuff last summer, the RDs would be speculated RDs, but this one we could. I don't know if it should or could pick one that we saw a resulting demand.
I think we have enough that we could, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So we have 5 questions. We have 7 if you include the sub questions.
So I have another one.
Oh, go for it.
So in the when they're asking about the cop was asking about the different health concerns. Yeah, he asked about tuberculosis, TB, asthma, seizures, and ulcers. I know there's no sign. TB is usually just TB, and then asthma and seizures have signs. But she chose to fingerspell them.
Mm-hmm.
And then she signed them. I was wondering if she did that because of a decision that to match the consumer, or if she was doing that to be for clarification, or really what was her decisions behind that.
Okay, so let's see. How are we going to phrase this? I'm going to say the client was asked, specifically asked, was about TB, diabetes, right? Schizophrenia.
Oh yeah, diabetes was one of them.
TB, diabetes, schizophrenia.
Seizures.
Oh, it wasn't schizophrenia. It was seizures and
wasn't
asthma.
And ulcers and asthma.
Asthma.
Some of these.
Yeah.
Some of these health issues have specific signs. And I noticed that you chose to fingerspell and sign them. Was there a reason behind that? If so, what was it? I need you to type up all of my questions and stuff because I can give you all these answers and then you type them up beautifully.
Right?
Instead of saying was there a reason behind that, I'll say what was the reason? Yeah. See, again, I'm speculating here because I don't know. But let's see. 3 years ago, when we had to do our mini presentation about a medical thing, it was for one of Marla's classes in ASL, way back in the day. I chose to do mine on asthma, and this is the sign I commonly got around here in Washington. But there were other signs that when I asked my friend Suzanne, yeah, see, asthma, that's another one. And then I asked another one of my friends. So I found different kind of regional signs. And so I was like, I wonder if she decided to fingerspell that just to be clear and then be like, this is my sign for asthma.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, that's a good...
but
yeah.
This is probably we would need to ask the interpreter. Yeah, what is your... See, I don't even know the standardized or I don't know a sign for seizure. I've seen... Yeah.
I've seen this, but it's schizophrenia, which is this. I've seen seizure where it's your head shakes.
See, I've seen...
That was in the Midwest.
Yeah. I've seen this, and that can be kind of offensive because that's not how all seizures appear, and that's not medically accurate.
Yeah,
because some seizures are
could just look like, yep. So, and that could be also another reason behind why she chose to fingerspell it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah, those are good.
I like when the pop asks, has she been hospitalized this year? And then she signed, I know you guys can't see me, she signed this recent 12-month and then showed a time span going.
She did that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's that. So I guess,
what? Yeah, because I think she did that for the past month or in the last month.
Yeah, she would do 4 weeks frequently, recent 4 weeks. And sometimes she would follow it up with 1 month, and sometimes she wouldn't.
So, I mean...
Is there a question you want to ask about that, Charlotte?
That's just something I jot down, and I want to incorporate that into my work. So I'm just... I thought that was very effective. Because it shows... She didn't just say, this year, you've been hospitalized. She actually shows a time span. I thought that was effective.
We could ask if that's something she always does or if that was unique to this client.
Okay.
You mean do instead of do?
Huh?
Yeah,
I'm watching
thank you.
John type on the Google Doc, and I corrected something.
Yeah, I think that's good. And
Okay.
this is supposed to not be capitalized. Why is this capitalized? There we go. It's probably going to auto-capitalize. Okay, that's better. I thought that was very effective too, Charlotte.
Yeah. Something we could steal for our future work.
Another question I had, and this is just a result of an interpretation is when the client was getting impatient. The interpreter said, "We're almost done," the officer said, "We're almost done," and the interpreter went, like, "Soon finish," and then like kind of warned her, added the "be patient."
I missed that.
Yeah.
Maybe that was okay. This is an assumption, but it could have been off the tone of his voice.
See, I wondered that too because I wanted. See, I was like, that's a clarification for the client to know, like it was said in just a very calm, matter of fact way, but the way she did it as the interpreter was kind of like direct and commanding.
Yeah.
Be that because they're friends, she can do that with her. Hold on, be patient.
Hmm.
Like how you talk with your close friends.
Yeah, maybe.
Speculating too.
I'm gonna add that as a question though.
I was just gonna say, how would you? I don't know if you have an idea of how to word that, but I think that would be a good question to ask. Was that towards the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, again, speculation, but I wonder if her brain was kind of shutting down.
Oh, right.
That was a lot of information to be taking in for that long a period of time. And it was a 25-minute video, so. You see Potter?
Yeah. I was telling John, all of our classmates have animal elk for this recent video that we did. And I have no animal elk. They're not.
That's my cat. I raised a dog.
I have no cats, no dogs, nothing.
Cats are 100% different than dogs, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah?
So I had to do a lot of extra research myself. I've never actually raised or trained a dog. But yeah. Did you get that typed?
I did.
I did have one more question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, and I don't know if this will, I don't know if we did anything with how she voiced for the affect and meaning, so it might work off of that. But there was the one time when the deaf client just rolled her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And she voiced, yeah, whatever. I don't know. I guess my question would be, like, a question directly to the interpreter, but, like, you know, how unduly free. Does that make sense?
And how unduly free
is that?
What do you mean? Like,
so.
I see the question you're trying to get it in a different way.
Because, like, if the deaf consumer just rolls her eyes, I feel like that's enough for a hearing person to understand.
Maybe, yeah. I was gonna say, why don't we change the question to, how did you make a decision to voice following the client rolling their eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Or what went into the decision to voice after the client simply rolled her eyes?
Yeah.
Or why did you make the decision to voice after the client simply rolled her eyes?
Agreed. Yeah, no, that works. And then,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good one. They're all good questions. Oh, this is a nice list, guys.
I do have one more.
Oh yeah, no, we could add like 8 billion. We just have to have a minimum of 8. I know, because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, what went into this? Yeah, what's the other one?
Why did you not choose to use consecutive interpreting and instead use simultaneous interpreting?
That's great. I'm gonna start the list with that.
Because in this setting, and I'm thinking to what I'm doing in my community class right now, you know, it's an intimate one-on-one interaction.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most prime times for consecutive interpreting. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. But then that also, I don't know if that affects the power dynamics between the cop and our deaf consumer.
If I'm ever booked, I want to be booked by a really nice cop like that guy. He was super nice.
Yeah, he even
Smiled a
said,
lot.
you what?
He smiled a lot.
I think it's because he knew he was on camera.
Mhm.
Cool. What do we want to do for our DCCRD?
I just have one just to throw it out there because I kind of basically transcribed the whole little section. You don't have to. Is the when she was signing, when the cop asked what was your weight, and she signed. She signed with her hands on the table, her head in her hands. She said, "I don't want to tell you," but it looked like already or like finished tell.
Yeah, that's
So
what I saw it as.
And the Turk voice, I already told you. And the cop's like, no, you didn't. And the deaf consumer's like, I don't want, like, she sat up and she said, I don't want to tell you.
I like that one. Charnette, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that sounds fine. So the man would be
Okay, the main demand.
I think,
Wait, say that again. You're chopping. Oh no, did I lose you guys? Okay, say it again,
the main
Alicia.
man would
no, I'm here. I'm here. I hear Shana.
Okay, what did you say? What do you think the main demand would be?
Oh, Shana.
would it be? I'm not sure.
I think be one of two things. The deaf consumer, but I think that might be more of a concurrent demand with the paralinguistic demand of the deaf consumer has her hand on the table and she's signing like this, and her head in her hand.
I think that would be more the def. I think that would be more, and I'm trying to decipher. I'm trying to decide if the paralinguistic demand is the main demand of like this, like I don't know if that's the main demand, or if the main demand, then a concurrent demand would definitely be that she's tired. Like another demand is she's already asked a number of times, "Are we done yet?" You know.
I agree. Well, now that I'm thinking about it, would this give us an ability to have a positive consequence and a negative consequence?
Everything has a positive consequence or a negative consequence. Something was allowed to happen, or something was not allowed to happen. That's what's positive and negative. So I think we can get to it. Okay, so the deaf client is tired. The deaf client has already asked several times if the interview was over. I think the main demand is a paralinguistic demand. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too, because that's what caused her signs to be so unreadable.
that Quish should definitely like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Quish.
You're on headphones, so.
Oh. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so paralinguistic demands signing with one hand, signing with one hand in a not clear way. I don't know. So I think signing with one hand while her head is resting on the other head. That's two demands, isn't it?
I would say that's all one demand. Because that, I think it deals with her posture.
Okay, so reading through this thing, she said demands must be specific and to the point. So we can't Include just enough information to make it specific.
Yeah,
I think this is what we've got so far is pretty specific.
I think so. Signing with one hand while her other hand is, while her head was resting on her other hand. Yeah. The deaf client is.
I'm just throwing this out here, but could another demand be that the interpreter was standing?
Yeah.
Because perspective view of looking at the consumer. That makes sense. And that might be why she saw finish rather than don't want.
Yeah, that's. I saw finish. I saw. I already told you the first time I saw or watched it.
So was she signing? I already told you, or I don't want to tell you. That's
I thought she was signing. I don't want to tell you.
I think you're correct, Alicia. I think you're correct. Okay, so the interpreter standing. So concurrent demands. The client, the deaf client is tired. The deaf client has already asked if the interview is over a couple of times.
Hold up.
Hold up.
Would the main demand be the consumer signs don't want to tell you?
Actually, yes, that is the main one.
Yeah,
Had like a aha moment right there.
That's great. Yep.
Okay, so paralinguistic then.
That the paralinguistic demand would be one of the concurrent demands.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, because without the don't want to tell you, the control choice, the interpreter makes sense.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
So then the control choice would be the interpreter voiced, I already told you.
Yep. So, positive consequence. What was allowed to happen?
Hold on. In the form that she uploaded on there, she said the goal of an environment must also be considered as a concurrent demand in deciding which useful options are. You might have to put that in.
Where are you looking at that?
When she has assignment 2, there are 4 links, stuff you can open up, and it's the DCS grading rubric guidelines.
Yeah, I've got that open.
So scale 6 under rationale says the goal of the environment must always be considered as a concurrent demand in deciding which control options are most effective.
Is to gather information
Yeah.
or
I was gonna say medical information, but I think.
or personal.
Well, this one is all about medical in particular.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the environment of the actual interaction, though, it's both. So
Yeah, I think just gather information. Okay, gather information. The interpreter voices, I already told you. Positive consequence. It allows.
Yeah, what is the positive?
that's what I was trying to rack after I realized.
No, so the positive consequence, it allows. Because if you think about it, if I was really tired and I was like, like, the positive consequence is that the officer would naturally go, I'm sorry, what did you say? You know? So I think the positive consequence is that it allows for a more natural interaction between somebody who wants to be in this interview or needs to do this interview versus somebody who is over the interview. So it allows for a more natural interaction between deaf client and officer.
Yeah, I agree.
allows the officer and the deaf client another opportunity to re-engage / get correct information.
Mhm.
Yeah, negative consequence. I can see two. What are we gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I could be completely wrong. I might be thinking of the resulting demand, which is why.
That's from the negative consequence.
But negative consequence is that she interprets the wrong message.
Yeah, no, I think that is a negative consequence. Is the client's intentions were not accurately interpreted. Yeah.
More beautiful sounding than what I said.
You say the deaf consumer's intentions.
Yeah, and you have Charnette, you have access to this document. So if you go to your Gmail account and just click on the link, I've shared it with you, so you'll have access to this whole thing.
Yay.
So the resulting demand is the officer says, "You haven't told me this already," or the resulting demand is the officer asks the question again. Right?
Well, he says you didn't tell me.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the officer states.
Or he said, no, you didn't. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I can't remember exactly what he said. I'm not going to try to put quotations around it. I'm just going to put the officer states that her weight hasn't been responded yet, or the officer states hasn't been recorded yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
we
good.
We have to do another one?
No, we just have to do the one. I think that's good.
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
Yay.
So, do we want to, just because for the sake of that we have each other on here, and part of our case study is that we have to discuss some alternative control choices?
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to just talk about that real quick, about maybe some other options of control choices that we could have used?
Possibly. I'm a little worried because we've been talking for about an hour now, almost an hour. We've been talking for about 50 minutes, and I'm worried that space for this recording is gonna be all gone.
Yep. No, that's okay.
So can we? Why don't we post? And so are these optional control choices just for that constellation of demands?
That's what that's something I would need to get clear. I would need to read real quick. Let me see.
Well, I'll just suggest, why don't we respond in the group chat with those alternate control choices, or we can respond in the Google Drive below. I'll probably put mine in both, so we can have it just in one place, as well as in the group chat.
Yeah, no, I'll do it in the Google Doc.
Okay.
I think that'll be easier. And we can.
How many we have the DCCRD and the questions, is it together in one document? I haven't checked in the...
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that we are good to go. I think the rest of it's really on our own, in a sense of we need to analyze this a little bit more. I think questions is really going to help us each individually do these case studies. Because I think we talked about a lot of the implications around them as well. So
Yeah, I think this is a good conversation.
yeah,
A
awesome.
lot done.
Okay. Well, cool guys. Thanks for staying up till midnight, Charlotte.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Sharon.
Yeah, it's okay, guys. We worked it out. I don't have to be early in the morning, so it's okay.
I'll
Nice.
post this. I'll upload this to YouTube, and then I'll post a link to the group discussion. What I'll also do is I'll also post a link to the Google Doc in the group discussion as well.
So the Google Doc that we've created here,
Mm-hmm.
and then under our class in Canvas, under that discussion board, right?
Correct.
I just
Because
wanted to make sure.
you know how the three of us just have a group thread or whatever? That one.
So is that what you're talking about with responding with our alternative control choices in that group discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I was thinking of the group me.
No, I think no, not GroupMe. I think either that thread or the Google Drive. Like I'll probably put mine in both because I just like the Google Drive that it has one. Like it's one document that we have everything we need. I like that.
I agree, as well as maybe if you can copy the link to the Google Drive to that too.
Yeah, I'm going to just so Jean can see it.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So
yeah.
I plan on doing my case analysis tomorrow.
Same.
When I get off of work. So if you guys have any questions or want to discuss anything in the meantime, just group me or let me know, and I can go look at that discussion before I do mine.
Sounds good. Same thing. I'm gonna work on.
I'll look at it.
I'm gonna work on my educational class, and then I'm gonna go to bed.
Same, but community.
I'm just gonna go to bed. Good night, guys.
Yeah, it's midnight.
Good night.
Charlotte. Night, John. Well,
Night.
you guys have a good night.
No,
I will.
Bye.